Hey guys, welcome to the very second episode of Famous Last Words. My name is Evan DeGraff. I will be your host for today. This is the show where we just kind of do a deep dive, not into a film, but a person's life. And today I have a really special guest. Him and I have been pretty good friends in this space now for a while, due to some of our past work, which we're going to get into. But let's save all the chitter chatter. Jacob London, welcome to the first episode of Famous Last Words. How you doing, my guy?
I'm good. How are you?
It's been a day. Quarantine. You and I were talking about this. It does things to the brain, man. Like you wake up in the morning and you don't feel awake sometimes.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I've been on leave at the moment, and yeah, it's days are kind of forgetting what day it is, especially now that I'm trying to be on your American schedule as well. It's making life very interesting.
Yeah. So just before we get into a few things, just a couple of housekeeping that PJ was yelling at me to do. Just kidding. We have a Streamlabs. Feel free to donate if you guys would like to. All the donations kind of go straight back into the channel, so we're not like pocketing anything. But if you don't donate, if you feel like you don't want to, or even if you can't, like no pressure. I get it. We're in a really weird time. Then also, I've been doing these for all my shows recently. I just dropped the link to the tweet that's promoting today's show. So if you'd like to retweet that, I will be giving you guys a shout out at the end of the episode. So go retweet that link and I'll give you a little cute shout out. But getting into that, Jacob, we have you on here for one reason and one reason only. I was gonna have you on like way down the line because due to the content of this episode. However, you're on leave, which means you're on vacation in America, in the American words. So with that, how has it been? Because obviously you can't go anywhere, can't do anything.
Well, the whole reason I had 2 weeks off planned because it was Easter, and I like taking Easter off. I always work over Christmas, but I like having Easter off just because it's it's a nice break, it's a nice relaxation. And my cousins were getting married, so we were having to go down to Sydney for a wedding. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We couldn't go down to Sydney for it. So pretty much I've just spent 2 weeks sitting at home watching movies. Taylor was able to take a week off. She wasn't able to get the full 2 weeks. And yeah, I've just taken 2 weeks. And now this week I'm just relaxing and we're not really doing anything. It's great.
Do you think that like maybe not going to the wedding, like outside of Corona, like let's act like COVID didn't exist. Do you think not going to the wedding is kind of nice though? Because you literally get to do almost nothing outside of make content right now.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, we were going to go to the wedding, so the wedding was right at the beginning of when I had leave planned. We were only going to go down for the couple of days and then drive back. The nice part is I didn't have to drive at 6 o'clock at night for a 10-hour drive. So for context, the drive is essentially it's about a 12-hour drive from where I live now to Sydney. So yeah, it's nice. I don't have to do that at 6 o'clock at night and try and get there and sleep somewhere in the back of the car on the side of the road. So that's
So I guess with that, we're gonna kind of jump into things. The first thing I kind of wanted to talk about with you, and it's not related to anything you or I, but rather you're clearly Australian. If not, then you're British and you've been lying to us all, and Taylor's been able to cover up your tracks. But you're Australian. And something that I found just really curious about you is your affinity for American culture.
Yeah. So
you have one for better or worse, but it's there, and I want to know why.
So I think it's more come from the movies. I have lived in Australia my entire life. I've never until this year, last year, I had never even been to the United States. And it was something that I'd always wanted to do. I have grown up loving American culture just because based off movies, really watching movies and watching the world that is presented in movies that America is. I've always just kind of loved that. And I've always wanted to be able to actually go to the United States. And it's just been an incredible experience. The last 2 years, now has just been absolutely wonderful, and I really love. I've always loved the idea of America. The joke that my dad used to always make was stop speaking with an American accent whenever I like that was always his joke. And even Taylor noticed when she moved over here, she noticed that my accent is an Americanized version of an Australian accent. Like I have American inflections, and there is something about my accent that's not 100% Australian when she listens to people like my parents, like people she works with, she can hear a thicker Australian accent, whereas in mine is very based on the fact that I live here and the fact that I watch American movies constantly.
That's ironic given the facts that like literally everyone I talk to gives you shit about being Australian. Literally everyone. And hearing, because we haven't really talked about that before, but like the facts that like you could be called what you're an Americanized Australian.
Yeah,
Brisbane, Florida, Australia.
Yeah, so it is interesting. Like it's fascinating that now I'm dating an American, but I had always grown up with this love and affinity of America. I always wanted to move and live in America, but it's a lot harder to do that than it looks. And
yeah,
so it took a while for me to start to actually accept. I guess like to start really appreciating my Australian heritage. That actually took quite a while, because I've always wanted to be in America, living and being considered American. Whereas and it's took quite a while in my life to be actually go to being, no, I'm Australian. That's my my heritage, I guess. And yeah, it's interesting.
But you could also say, and we're gonna get to something else soon, but that like your calling of nearly being Australian has now been your calling in the community, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think because suddenly that was my point of difference. So when I did come into the community and I did come into this online space, it was my point of difference to everyone else. So talking to you and to everyone when we first started Take 3, that was my difference. So I've now heavily leaned into that because I wanted that point of difference is, I can offer the Australian perspective that is different to all 7 other panelists or whatever.
Yeah. So before we get into Take 3, because you and I talked about this beforehand, we're gonna jump into it. I want to mention a couple things. If you're watching right now, feel free to drop some stuff in the comments. We might use that as some of the talking points, or at the end, we'll probably be taking a couple of questions. So feel free to be part of the conversation. You guys want to get to know Jacob as much as I do. I already know him a little bit, so that's from you guys. And then Jacob, talking about the American culture thing. 2 questions. What film made you fall in love with movies, and then what film kind of made you fall in love with the culture of film / Hollywood / I guess America, to repeat myself?
I don't think there's any particular film that made me fall in love with America in particular. I think it was more just movies are made in America, and that's, inherently you speak to your own culture when you're making films, and that's what, right. I was watching films made by Americans who are speaking to their own culture in America. So that was something that I think that's what led to me wanting to be in America, because I was watching people speak their voice, which was American, if that makes sense. Right.
Yeah.
The movie that I always say opened my eyes to film and the power of film was Good Will Hunting. Good. So, however, I did love film before I saw Good Will Hunting. I loved watching movies. I loved going to the movies all the time, much to my parents' chagrin. You know, I still remember going to Blockbuster and renting a bunch of movies just to watch them. Like it was,
Right.
I did all the time. But Good Will Hunting was the one that really got me to go, no, you can do stuff more than film. Like you can do things that are more powerful in film than just telling a fun action film.
Yeah, it's also it's funny that you mentioned Good Will Hunting because I've talked about this. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and not to keep pushing this narrative, but like that's definitely what you call an American film set in Boston, set with this story where you have Will Hunting and he obviously neglected, abused, and it's definitely a very American story at that too. I'm gonna keep pushing this narrative.
Yeah, it definitely is. But I think also it was the catalyst for, because I still can remember that week very, very clearly. It was 10 years. It was 11 years ago in June. And I had watched Good Will Hunting, Shawshank Redemption, Godfather, Pulp Fiction, like the classics. I watched about 15 of them in a week. But it all started with Good Will Hunting. And that's kind of where I go with my lists is, Good Will Hunting is my favorite film of all time. I think Taylor's right. That has been supplanted by The Social Network because I talk about Social Network a lot more than I talk about Good Will Hunting. But Good Will Hunting was where it started.
Right. So then with that, you fall in love with film. It's Good Will Hunting, how about them apples? We got it. But then you want to say, how about them apples yourself? And you stumble across this movie trivia show. I don't know which one you stumble across first, though. So let's get into that.
So
how the hell did you find any of this?
I will actually, this is a very interesting story. I, for the life of me, cannot remember the movie, but I found a review from a guy named Roll It Review. I think it was Roll It Review. I can't actually remember his proper name, but this was I think late 2009. Might have been mid 2010.
That's wild to me because I would have never even thought about YouTube then. Like YouTube wasn't a thing for me at that point.
So it was back then, and I remember watching his review and being like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like, I think it was late. It was early 2011 because I had just graduated from high school, and 2011 was the year I was going to see every single movie that came out. It was the first year I'd ever done it, and every Thursday, without fail, I went to the theaters because there was a theater about half an hour away from where I lived. I actually had to pass 3 other theaters to get to it. That had tickets for $7.50.
It's not bad.
Which, if I went to the other two, the one that was actually closer to me, that was 5 minutes down the road, that same ticket would have cost me $15. So
that's whack. That's completely whack.
Yeah, so I would always go to this theater, and going to this theater, I started to go see every single movie that opened on a Thursday because movies opened on Thursdays in Australia, not Fridays. And I remember wanting to look up a review, and this kid, he was sitting in his bedroom talking about movies, and on the side in the also liked ones was Chris Stuckman. So I looked at Chris Stuckman's review. This was about 3 weeks, and if anyone who's been following for a certain amount of time will know that I'm saying he left. Chris Stuckman actually was on YouTube. He left YouTube for a reason he's never really talked about. And then he came back. This was about 3 weeks after he had come back. And he was back in the YouTube space. And then he mentioned this thing called the Movie Awards. This You Reviewers Movie Awards.
Yeah, the You Review Awards that had Johns and all of them.
Hosted by Jeremy Johns and these guys called the Schmoes Know. So I was like, okay, I'm curious. So I went and started to follow Jeremy. I went to watch some more of Jeremy Johns' reviews. I really enjoyed those. I thought they were very entertaining, very funny. And I literally remember binge watching an entire year of his reviews because he had done all of 2010. So I went through and I watched every single year. The Schmoes I also thought were very funny. I thought that their reviews were a little too long for me. Like I don't know, like I didn't quite like theirs as much as I liked Jeremy's, but I still really enjoyed them.
Right.
Sat down and I watched a whole bunch of theirs as well. They start doing this You Reviewers thing, and I actually watched their You Reviewers rewards, and then I really enjoyed that, and from there I just started following the Schmoes back in 2011. So I'm at the end of the year, I'm coming up on 10 years of following the Schmoes, and I just kept following their content, and eventually it led to them starting this movie trivia league.
But it's funny though, because I joined the community circa 2014. None of our stuff took off until 2016-ish.
Late 2016, 2017.
Yeah. But I never remember you in the community at all though. Like even like on any of the Schmoville or shit like that. I just don't remember you there.
So I wasn't very big in the community. I have never really been someone who posts a lot on social media, who posts a lot on forums and is involved in Facebook groups and stuff. That's never really been me. I mean, clearly from the 4 months that I was away from the entire thing, no, I never posted really anything. So that's just more, I've never really been that person. And right. I always just enjoyed it from afar.
Interesting. So would you say like you're an avid viewer or stuff like that? Or were you kind of casual? Like not every video, but if something like was interesting you, then you'd watch it.
So reviews for the Schmoes, I would at Jeremy's, I would watch every single review he did, no matter what. For the Schmoes, I would watch if it was a movie that I was looking forward to or that I really enjoyed, I would watch their review. I always watch their or listen to their podcast. 2011 was when I really started getting into podcasting and listening to film podcasts. And the problem was there weren't very many. So I would listen to ones that even if I didn't love them, I would still listen to them because at least they were talking film. And there weren't that many, ironically, out there.
No, at the time, the space was not convoluted at all. It was very empty, very free.
Yeah, which is get ironic because then that led to me also finding John Campier because I wanted content. Like that was my thing, is I just wanted to listen to content because I was a college student. I was sitting in libraries for a very long amount of time. I didn't have a car, so I had to catch public transport everywhere, and I just needed content. And I would sync any amount of content I could. I would listen to anything. I would watch anything I could that was just talking about movies because I was hooked and I was in love and I just wanted to watch and talk about movies. And then it's
for sure like a drug. I can say that. I remember when I first dipped my toe into it. It's definitely a drug, and it took me a while to figure out what that balance is because it is near impossible to get that balance. And whenever, like, especially where you're a content creator, you're a content consumer, and you're also someone who has a whole nother life to them, that balance is impossible.
Yeah, and it's I remember that I still can remember to this day a review that I actually posted that I don't think I have anymore just because I've changed YouTube channels and I reorganized my life. And it was one that I did for Project X. And I can remember Mark Ellis commented on it. And that was a pretty big moment for me of seeing it got like 300 views or something, but Ellis was one of them and he actually commented. And that was something that was a huge deal for me and something that I still actually really hold and cherish.
I'd have to say, and this is kind of halfway off topic, but like I feel like everyone has their Mark Ellis moment that they hold true to them.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely, yeah. Everyone's got that Mark Ellis moment. I'm lucky enough to have a few, but that one I still can remember that moment. That was, just suddenly he had commented on it, and I just couldn't believe it, and I was just so happy. And yeah,
Couple of things. Abe says that he always thought you're from Alabama, which fair enough. I could buy that. Tall white guy accent sounds a little funny. I get it. And then PJ also says, "Tell Jacob I hate him and his accent." Which, how dare you? Next, we're gonna jump towards 2014. That's when the first season of the movie MTS starts. This I'm probably one of the boomers in this. Probably my favorite season. It feels, well, I would argue, it's most genuine, the most fun, the most fulfilling. You had the trial of JTE then, which you could argue is probably one of the best storytelling points the Schmoedown has had yet.
I mean, natural. That was the thing. Like it wasn't forced or fabricated. It was just a natural moment. I can still remember that. I can still remember that 2014 season very clearly because by then I was working for a theater. I was actually working in a cinema, and I'd kind of started to drift away from watching the Schmoedown, from watching the podcast very often. However, I fell in love with the trivia show. So when the show would drop, I would always actually just skip forward to the actual trivia event, and because it always dropped on a Friday morning,
Right.
around about it was around about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, in the afternoon, in the morning, sorry. So because that was Thursday night for you guys, and I would always just skip forward or watch it live. If I was able to catch it live, I would watch it live, or I would skip forward to just the trivia event because I fell in love with the trivia event. And by then, I'm pretty sure it might have been a few years later. No, by then they were part of AMC.
Yeah.
So I was watching.
Yeah, they moved into the AfterBuzz Studios for their
Yeah.
shows.
So I was watching Movie Talk religiously. I watched it every single day. That was my number one show that I watched, much to the chagrin of the girl I was dating at the time. She really didn't like it, and I would watch and listen to every single episode of that, and then the Schmo started appearing on it, and I just fell in love with it.
Interesting. So then you hook to the trivia, which makes a lot of sense. I can foresee you liking AMC because you have a very organized way that you like things. Everything has to be kind of like in a specific place and whatnot. And AMC did a really good job of keeping that structure, for better or worse. So, 2014 happens, and then 2016 MTS gets really popular. Like, it gets that, and we also had movie fights on Screen Junkies. Granted, two different entities and two different missions. The two of them were kind of on a weird path where they were both starting to get kind of popular for different reasons.
So I enjoyed movie fights.
Yeah.
I did enjoy movie fights. I enjoyed sitting down and watching movie fights. However, I loved the Schmoedown. I still very clearly can remember that first fight between Campia and Dan Merle. I can still remember that episode dropping.
You know what's funny? Something just popped up in my feed of Dan doing his promo against Campia.
I still remember.
I literally, for whatever reason, I got chills, like literally this week, of Dan dropping a promo on John Campia. It's just one of those things, like what we said earlier, is just genuine. It's like, look at him go.
Yeah, I can still very clearly remember when that episode dropped, and then I can remember, I think it was I'm pretty sure it was a week later or 2 weeks later, the infamous Roker Mance match dropped, and that was something. Yeah, like the Bespin moment. Bespin was in there. I can still remember Bespin, and that was really the start of it. And I had joined the groups at that point. I'd started to join the groups, but I still wasn't really. I wasn't really contributing to it a lot, or being someone who actually really gets a part of it. And it was later in the year that I did. The Spectacular was a big thing for me.
Spectacular that year was who?
So Spectacular that year. Well, there was the main event of Spectacular was Dan Merle versus Mark Ellis. So that was Spectacular.
Right. Oh, I cried. I for sure cried sad tears.
Yeah, and then you had the teams match in there as well, and I'm pretty sure there was that was the debut of the Inner Geekdom. The Inner Geekdom was in that one. Like there was that was a match as well, and there was two other ones. I think there was the runner-up match for the tournament, and that So, and then there was another match that I can't remember what it was, but that was I still can remember that when that dropped. I wanted to be able to watch it with people. At that time, I didn't really have anyone who was really into this sort of thing, and they were kind of very dismissive of it whenever you would mention it.
Which I get. Like I as shitty as it sounds, I do get it to an extent. You like this movie trivia show?
Yeah, I get it, and I can remember it was the first and only time I ever sat down in my living room and actually watched it on the main living room TV. So I would normally just watch it in my bedroom and have it on the TV in my room. This was the first time I ever actually sat down and watched it out in the living room, comfortable, because it was going to be for 6 hours. And I can still remember that day. It was that was a lot of fun, but I was watching it by myself, and because of that, I ended up wanting that sense of community. So I went into the Facebook group and started talking and started commenting on things about how much I enjoyed a lot of this stuff. And that's when someone put in a link about a fan trivia league.
Oh, right. So this is where everything comes to a screeching halt, I would say. Little bit, yeah. I think this is where I kind of have to come in. So some small child, smaller than me, decides to come up with a fan league called Take 3 Productions, and put the fan league on that channel. And then you have the fan schmodown, the fan movie trivia schmodown. I think that's verbatim what it was first called.
Yeah, it was. That was verbatim.
And then we hop on it, and I was the first one to join. I decided to make graphics of them. As I do, I took it upon myself to make graphics for something that I had no business doing something for. And I was using, I think at the time, Keynote for actually the PowerPoint for Apple devices. And I made some really shitty graphics. And
they were not good.
And they weren't, but I did them. And it was better than a blank screen. And then over time,
back when they were audio only. When it first started, they were audio only. They wouldn't do video.
Yeah. And I think I did that for about 3 weeks. And then I had the nerve to be like, okay, let me join the team. I'm finally, I've done graphics for you guys. None of you guys know what you're doing. So let me join. And in all fairness, this is also cocky Evan. In over his head, he's in high school. He thinks he's cool, I guess. And so we do that. And then we have this guy named Jacob who's steamrolling through the league.
So at that point, I'd only ever had one match. However, it was against Woodburn. And it was quite Woodburn played okay. And me in my, I guess ignorance, because I didn't really watch any of them. I kind of just joined as like hey, okay, well, I'll join. And then they were asking who wants to play, and I was like, I'll put my hand up. And I remember playing that match, and at the end of it, being told, "Hey, you got 13. You got, I think, 13 or 14 points, which is the second best out of anyone who's ever done it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's what I'm joining. All right." And I actually thought I played pretty badly because there were some obvious ones that I missed. So I do remember that match being quite actually disappointed in myself, and then being told you've got the second highest score out of anyone so far.
I remember the ironic part then too is our questions were hard. Like, there's no getting around it. They were very difficult questions.
They weren't easy, and I can remember just being annoyed at myself because a lot of the ones that I would have considered obvious, I remember getting wrong. And because I remember going into that third, I think going into that third round, I was actually behind, and Woodburn missed his last 3, and I got my 3, and that's what let me win. But I can't even remember how they actually played that anymore.
Right. No, but I get your point. You're shocked because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess I'm doing something. But I can also imagine a world where you're like, God damn it, Jacob, because you're also halfway perfectionist. I know that about you. It's just, however you were decided to be wired, that's just what you do and what you are.
Yeah.
And so I think it was after 2 or 3 matches, we would hang out on stream afterwards for a little bit and just talk about anything from movies to the match.
Kind of. Someone had put in the group, hey, we need someone to be a scheduler. Like we need someone to be the scheduler. This was about 2 weeks after my first match, because this was back when you had a match and you wouldn't get another match for about 3 to 4 months. Like it was still quite a while before you were going to get another match, and they needed someone.
Yeah, and also to put things in perspective, it was like anybody's first time really doing anything like this.
Yeah, and it was
the showdown, and it was online, and it took a lot of effort at the time.
Yeah, and really, there was about 4 people running Take 3 at that 5 running Take 3 at that point. There was 5 people, 2 of which lived in different countries, and 3 of which who lived in different countries and were always busy.
And one of them was in the military too.
Yeah, exactly, and so it was always very okay. They were trying to string this thing together, and I remember, and there was a post saying, hey, we need someone to, is anyone able to do this? And I put my hand up. I had an interview. I remember that. And
oh my dude. Oh.
Yeah, I had an interview, and I must have impressed, because about a day later, I got added into the group, and it was, hey, this is Take 3. Welcome to Take 3. And from there, I would start. I remember I took it very seriously when I first started. I came up with a word. I still remember that I came up with this Google Docs, because at the time I didn't use Google Docs like ever, like at all, because I didn't need to. I know, and so I actually fully created this brand new Google Docs thing that had all the matches scheduled, had all of this, and I ended up scheduling matches for about 3 months, and then about a month later we decided, scrap all of that, we need a champion. Like we need someone to have a belt so that there is something for people to obtain,
to play for, rather than just playing for points or whatever.
Yeah. So what we decided to do was, all right, we scrapped all of that and we came up with a tournament. It was about 16 people, and we came up with the tournament, and I was one of them. I think everyone in Take 3 was a participant, except I think Harvey. I don't think Harvey wanted to be.
No, I remember I played Harvey at one point, but I don't think it was in the tournament.
Anyway. And so we came up with this, and then I ended up getting to the semifinals. I was the only member of Take 3 to get to the semifinals, and the guy who beat me ultimately ended up getting the belt. And the question that I got wrong was an Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind question, because this is back when we had the IMDb round.
Oh, that's a really cool round, though. Like I
did really enjoy that round. It cost me, the IMDb round cost me, because I got the question wrong. It was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I think I said Lake House or something. Anyway,
which is ironic because you love that movie.
I do. I love Eternal Sunshine. I think it's a great film. It was just the wording of it just tripped me up, which I guess it's supposed to do. So I think Jono was his name. He ends up winning the belt.
Yeah.
He ends up being the one who has the belt.
Oh, well.
Great. Now, unlike every other competitor, Jono was audio only. Everyone else would do video, which was fine because
but also like the ironic part about Jonah being Jonah was these matches were shot where it was you're 12 hours, 14 hours different from my time. Jonah lived in UK.
Yeah.
So we were all on different times. It wasn't just like one person. Whenever we would shoot those, we would all literally be on different times.
Yeah. So Jonah was the champion. And then because I ended up winning I got a number one contender shot. I ended up winning that match, which then made me go on to face Jonah again.
Right.
In what people keep calling and saying was one of the best fan league matches for a while. I don't know if later in the season, like I don't know if later it ended up becoming better, but it was one of I think Jono got one question wrong and I didn't get one wrong at all. And then I became the champion, and that was really great. And then at that point, we had all started within Take 3 to do trivia. We were all still really big fans of the movie Trivia Schmodown, but we had at that point the Dan versus Roker match had dropped, and you guys had all watched it, but I hadn't. And you, me, and a few other people got onto a Skype call because you wanted to see my reaction to the match, because you all knew that I was a big I was a Roker fan and a Dan fan.
Guy.
I was and so
Florida State University representative, both of them, my school, just gotta say.
Fair enough. But we anyway, we all got on a Skype call, and I just remember being told, I'm gonna record this reaction because I want to have this just for authenticity's sake. And so they recorded the reaction, and I was the first ever reaction that Take 3 ever did. It was literally just me. I don't even know if we have that footage anymore, but my video was the first one we ever did. And the
ironic part is it has to be archaic because all of our setups have since then gotten better. All of our sounds gotten better, and also our connections, just due to bandwidth and things, further developing and getting better. Like that footage must look archaic to our eyes.
So I'm pretty sure I'm filmed like this because I'm watching the TV that's there and the camera and the computer is there. Like it's not good. I will assure you that it would not look good. But that was,
and you could say we got smarter too. We definitely got smarter.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And that one never got released. I'm fairly certain that one never actually got publicly released because it was more just for a personal thing. And then we decided about a week later, hey, why don't we just do a reaction to this match? Because I think it was another big match that we were like, let's do a reaction. And Christian really, really liked them. And from then they just became our staple.
Yeah, and you could say from there, which take this as you will, things went either uphill or downhill, considering who you ask.
Bit of column A, bit of column B. Look, after the first reaction we dropped, we exploded in popularity. I think we had about I think we had about 100. We hadn't quite broken 100 subscribers, and then we dropped the reaction, and we exploded something like 600 within a fortnight. It was insane how many subscribers we were getting, and from there we just decided, okay, why don't we start actually doing some content and making this.
And there's also a couple things to put here too, though. We also had, at that point, we had a bigger team, bigger cast, a crew. Like I think Matthew Kearns was there with us at this point.
Kearns probably joined. Abe had just Abe had joined because Abe had come in as our editor because we needed another editor, and we needed someone to actually do editing.
Yeah.
And
And
then
also another thing about Abe, he doesn't get talked about enough in this community, but he did some really cool shit. And he still does some really cool shit. Like every time he would sit down, he's like, "Oh, I have this really cool thing to show you guys." We look at it and all of our jaws would drop. Like,
yeah, some of the
ever gonna say this. Abe Flores deserves a lot more love than he got.
Yeah, he does. Abe was one of the biggest contributing factors as to why Take 3 exploded the way it did. Because suddenly, you go back and look at a lot of our early content, it wasn't great, and then the actual meat of the content was like we were, you could tell that the dynamic between us all worked really well. The content we were giving was great. It just looked crap. And Abe came in and prettied it up really well, and to the point where we were actually like really impressed with it and really happy, and it gave a level of professionalism.
And the other thing to think about too is we were still running the Fan League at that time.
Yes.
And we had just dropped Sheridan versus Zach. I forget his last name.
Yeah, that was the other big one, is that that day, I'll never forget that day where it was on a Schmoes live show that they were talking about the movie Trivia Schmoedown, and and then I think Ellis asked Brett, said, "When are you going to compete?" And Brett was just like, "I'm not going to compete. I'm going to compete in the minor league." And then he called us out, and he just straight up was like, "If anyone from Take 3 is watching this," and about 6 of us were,
because we were all massive fans.
Yeah, message me right now, and let's organize this. And I think within about 10 minutes, he was bombarded. I think Kristen became the point of call, because Kristen
was also talking to him too at the time, because
Kristen was the one organizing Brett's show that he did on what was it called?
Brett to the Future?
Yeah, that one. She was organizing that for him. So Kristen became the point of call. Eventually we actually got him onto a fan match. He lost to Zach Mitchell, who ended up actually getting a number 1 contenders match against me. And yeah, so we kind of did Brett dirty in that match.
But here's the thing though. We didn't know how good Brett was, and we didn't know how good Zach was. We just knew that Zach was someone who loves Brett. So it just made sense.
Yeah, we were trying to be nice to Zach. Okay. We tried to be nice to Zach and be like, "Okay, so you get a match against Brett," which he was so excited about. And then afterwards, it was like, "Oh, you were really good.
You were too good."
Yeah, and at the end of that match is the first ever time we got to talk to Harloff.
Oh yeah, because he
surprised us.
Yeah, he surprised us. He's like, "Haha, bitch!" And there we go. We literally saw him there, and I think this is where you could argue the bigger turning point came to Take 3 in terms of content and where our focus was. Also, Ferris, I do want to say Jacob is Australian. Maybe you're joking there, which it's okay. His Australianness is fine at best. But if you decided to watch back, we talk about his Australianness at actually the beginning of the show. So look back. What the hell are you doing, Jacob? Thank you. So with that, Harloff comes on, and all of us are shocked. We didn't really expect it. You always have that glimmer of hope, but there is no expectation of Christian Harloff being there.
This was the moment where we were kind of all like, at this point, Harloff knew about us because he was commenting on the things, but anytime he wasn't. We had asked a few times, "Hey, are we able to do this?" And he was always busy. He was always too busy, which was fair enough. We understood that, but we were never getting any way that we were actually able to communicate and get him onto the show. And you're right. This was the moment that changed, 1, the dynamics of Take 3, and 2, the focus of Take 3.
So what happens at this point is our relationship becomes stronger with Harloff. And we were all really excited, nervous, almost like ready to go. A really feeling of urgency might be the right word, but we took that and we ran with it maybe a little too much.
So I completely agree there that we at first the focus of the channel was more on movies with an element of with an element of the movie trivia Schmodown. After that meeting with Harloff, which then coincided about a week, I think 2 weeks later with Collision. So Collision dropped about 2 or 3 weeks later. So we got another interview with Christian to talk solely about Collision. That kind of made us move our focus away from talking more movies to talking about the Schmodown. So we created our Schmodown after show, which, you know, I am still really proud of.
It was a really good show because I remember at this point Chris Clark was on. You and I would brainstorm for hours on end to like actually make sure we get this show right, and then Chris Clark would make tons of graphics. Abe would too, and then it was a really big collaboration.
Because I'm really proud of that show more so because I was told by certain people, no, we're not doing it because the Rundown have that space.
Right.
Like we didn't want to step on anyone's toes with the Rundown, which I understood. But I figured, you know, hey, there's ESPN and
FS1.
And there's FS1. Like there can be more than one network who talk about the Schmodown. So
and you can do it differently too, right? And there's no pigeonhole.
We actually ended up doing it very differently. We would have it, you know, for the longest time. We were video. We were the only after show that was video because the Rundown was solely a podcast. So we would become video and we would actually be on YouTube. So people could watch it on YouTube. And that was something that people really enjoyed and people really liked. We were able to get guests. We were able to, there was a lot of things that we were able to do with video that the Rundown simply wasn't able to do. And that was our point of difference. And that was how we were able to actually showcase this point of difference, was that we were video. And it got our production quality that Abe and Clark were able to include into the Rundown was incredible. And I'm still so thankful for them because they made me sound like I could actually do, you know, hosting.
Yeah, it was definitely like a step above most of our content, because after that we had Late Night with Take 3, which was my child, something that we culturated, but even then we still had people saying, oh, you can't do that, blah blah blah, for different reasons. And so I know, at least in mine and yours perspective, and I think a couple others too, being told no was a driving force, but a really unhealthy one.
It was. We were told no a lot because you and I both had the focus of, we can be more than reactions. We can be more than the typical stuff that you do.
More than the trivia show too. We can be more than just asking people questions.
We saw the potential with the audience. And we wanted to move outside of just the Schmodown and focusing solely on the Schmodown. And we were constantly told no. We were constantly told, no, we're not comfortable with that. You and I had a political show that we wanted to do that lasted 3 episodes because we just kept being told no. And we had, you know, a whole bunch of other shows that we were always allowed to try. And that was about as far as we would go. We would never have any support.
Yeah, you can see like how engagement goes and see how that works. But the issue with that statement, and you know, I know not every single Famous Last Words is going to do well, but I'm not expecting them to, right? The thing is, engagement doesn't come after 1 or 2 episodes or 3 or even 5 or 6. It has to build. You have to give something like that time to build. And I think that's where a lot of your and mine frustration came from, was we never got the time.
No, and so the Rundown we did. I did that so many times when we were recording. I would call Take 3 the Summit, the Rundown. I would do it so many times it wasn't even funny. The Summit was something that they did end up giving us a bit more rope because it was Schmodown related, and Christian was promoting it, and that was. The idea behind Take 3 and the people who were running Take 3 was, will Christian promote it? Yes, cool, you can do it. Will Christian promote it? No, cool, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Right.
And that really became the mindset.
And the thing is, and I'll be fair too, sometimes we would buy into that as well.
Oh, I was terrible at it. I looking back, I will very wholeheartedly admit I was genuinely terrible with, will Christian do it? Yeah, cool. Let's put 100% of our effort behind it because Christian will promote it and that will be enough. And looking back, you go, no, it really wasn't. And really,
you know, what's funny about that now is I think any content creator who is now popular would agree with this statement of the facts, like, okay, take that shot, do it once, listen, get that promotion. But after that, it doesn't matter. You got to build your own brand. You got to do what you think is right.
Yeah. And I think that was part of yours and my biggest issue with how with how we were running in those later months, because it was funny. Like, we were only part of Take 3 for a year. It was about a year, and it was a year and a bit of our lives. And those later months really did become very toing and throwing against. Oh, we want to be Schmoedown focused, or we want to be ourselves, and we weren't able to find that middle ground of what is ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to be really careful coming up here, because it's not about saying the wrong thing, but it's about making sure we're saying the right thing. Because this is where everything kind of comes to a halt. A different channel ends up getting made for the trivia, which I can abashedly say this was my doing. For reasons good and bad, I was like, we got to do this. And then you take control of Take 3 from that point. It wasn't official, but it was kind of known. But then 2 weeks later, something happens. I don't want to get into too much detail. A Schmoedown event happened. And I left the channel after that just because I got in trouble with school, and I got tired from all of this. Not like the event or anything, but I just got tired. I was like, I'm stressed. I'm done. I'm going to go watch movies all my senior year and not talk about them. And then you left because I think a couple of your friends just started leaving as well, right?
So you're right. There was an event that happened in my life that, look, Evan and I have addressed this in Twitter threads. Go back and read those. If you want the details of what we're talking about, just go back and read those Twitter threads. But what specifically happened? What happened was there was a bubble basically within Take 3. It burst, and Evan left. I left because
Chris left. Kind of.
Yeah, Clark left. I left just mostly because of a personal issue.
Right.
And I still haven't really talked about that publicly. I'm not really going to talk about that publicly.
No.
Yeah. But ultimately, I mean, it led me to being a healthier person and a happier person. And
I can say that for myself as well. Like, leaving at the time that I did, because, and this is for me later, but like senior year, I ended up dealing with depression, and I can only imagine a depressed Evan doing YouTube would have not been good. It would have been a recipe for disaster. But and to your point, you left, and I can for sure say you've become a better person, and you've addressed this on Twitter too. Since then, I can say too, you've grown a lot.
Like I look back at who I was in 2017, because like 2017 is a weird year for me. It is one of the best years of my life and one of the worst years of my life. Because some of the best things that happened to me were being a part of Take 3. And, you know, there was a lot about Take 3 that I loved and that I will never forget. There are moments within Take 3 that I loved and adored, and I just will never forget those moments. But there is a lot of moments that are part of the worst moments of my life that I never want to remember again. And
right.
Take 3 is involved in some of those, and that's complicated. I have a very, very complicated relationship with a lot of people within Take Three and a lot of former members of Take Three, I should say. The current members of Take Three are all very lovely, and you should definitely go over and support them.
Please, literally every single person over there at Take Three, they all hold a special place in my heart. Even those I didn't talk with that much since they joined, they're still really cool people. Go support them. Get them to 1,000. Get them to 1,000 subs, please.
Yeah, like I'm not. This is nothing against the current people who are part of Take Three. It's just there is a lot involved in that. Again, we've talked about this on Twitter. We've used the names on Twitter, so you are more than welcome to go over there and have a look and see who we're talking about. But after I left Take Three, I was kind of in a weird place when it came to the Schmoedown and my relationship with it. And I've kind of still been in that spot since. I've never really truly been able to go back to ever being able to actually sit down and watch from start to finish every single week like we did when we were part of Take Three, just because there is still that relationship with it, if you understand.
Well, yeah, it's so funny. So you know this. I was watching Inside Out today because why not? I've been binging all the Pixar movies, and a big psychological thing is memories are connected with emotions, and they do a really good job of explaining that in the movie. And I can say for myself, and I think for you too, a lot of the memories there are connected with emotions, strong and not strong, good and not good, exciting and even depressing at times. So when you have the Schmoedown, which is directly connected with memories that happen with Take Three, it's sometimes hard to go back to something and be like, man, you just kind of, it's a looking back thing. And for better or worse, it's there.
Yeah, it is, because I look back upon a lot of the times in Take Three. Abe says, was it the dollar? That moment is still one of the top 5 moments on Take Three.
So good. Abe is underrated on camera too. I don't know. I keep having to hype up Abe, but like he would just do things, and he doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, holy shit,
he's hilarious. But then that same episode, there's stuff that happens in that episode that. Of the Late Show, it's weird. Like that thing has one of my favorite moments ever on camera, but it also has one of my worst moments on camera. And there's a lot of things and a lot of feelings that I have going back to that. But from after leaving Take Three, I got with Taylor Robinson, who is now my partner, who now lives with me, and I'm beyond happy, and it's great.
You have a partner? Is that what they're called in Australia? I'm kidding. That's a progressive term, and I actually appreciate you using that. So GG's, Jacob. You've taken the cake there.
I actually don't ever really call her my girlfriend. I always even to other people, I just say no, she's my partner. Like I don't know.
It's your best friend at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I mean, partner has become this. It's a more I don't know. Girlfriend and boyfriend has kind of become you do that in high school, whereas I'm like I don't know, now partner just sounds a bit more grown up, and I know I'm probably just making it sound like I'm more grown up than I actually am, but that's just I don't know, that's what I say. I don't know. It's how I get away with it, I guess.
So then all this comes to a halt. You've kind of already touched on this, but like you're still involved in the Schmoedown community.
Yes.
And
yes.
So I kind of like want to dive deep into your place in it and what does it mean and what doesn't it mean? Because I'm kind of halfway in a similar place as you in this case. So I'm kind of interested in maybe how we can relate and maybe take away something from that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that. My relationship with the Schmoedown and the Schmoedown community right now is very much one of I still love talking to certain people within the community. I still love interacting with the community. It is, after all, it is still movie trivia. It's still about this thing that I adore and I love, and I will gladly continue to talk about it because I adore and I love it. And that's really my place in the community at the moment. I don't really want to get on camera and discuss this week's match. I don't really want to record myself watching them anymore. But I will get on a Skype call with you and Clark and Pat and my friends, and I will gladly talk about it. I will go to a live event and gladly enjoy a live event. I just don't need to be someone who gets on camera and talks about it anymore.
It's funny because you've been to 3 live events now, or 2, or 1?
I've been to 1 official live event, and I've been to 2 recordings.
Wow, pretty boy over there. Because I went. So what you could call the first live event at Celebration 2016. Was that 2017? I always get that messed up. I always feel like Celebration is.
I knew you then. Like otherwise I wouldn't. I knew you then, and I remember the messages from going, "I'm at Celebration."
It was fun. It was fun. I love Celebration. But then most recently Atlanta, and at this point I was. And you can say this too. I was still distanced from the community. I had no reason to go back. And then me and Pat were talking, and I get a text. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be in Atlanta in about a month, and I live in Tallahassee. It's about a 4-hour drive. It's not that far away." I'm like, "Why the hell are you in Atlanta?" "Oh, Schmodown." I'm like, "Why did you not tell me this before?" And it just ended up being the facts. I was going to Atlanta that weekend.
Yeah,
like the actual chance that the facts, like I was for some whatever reason going to Atlanta that weekend, and it reminded me why I love the community so much and the people involved, and even the people who I looked up to. Like I said, we all have our Mark Ellis moment, and I think that's kind of my spot too, where we're all just kind of here and we just want to enjoy each other's presences almost. Does it make any sense?
Yeah, it really does, because that's kind of where my mindset is when it comes to anything Schmodown related at the moment. Is I love a lot about it. I just don't love talking about it. Talking about it publicly anymore.
Yeah.
I love watching it. I love talking about it with friends, and I love being in those rooms when you're in the room and you're watching it with friends and they're on stage, and it's just a lot of fun. I love the people who run it, and I love everyone involved with it. I just don't love talking about it publicly because there's still pain there. There's still a lot of reminders about Take 3, and there's still that pain, and trauma's not the right word, but it's the only thing I can think of right now.
It can be. Emotional trauma is definitely a thing, and it's a spectrum. I'm a full disclosure to everyone. I'm a psych finance dual degree. So when we talk about things like PTSD, trauma, ADHD, something I deal with, or other stuff, it's definitely a scale. And you and I have had this conversation before. It's trauma, but to an extent. You're not obviously as emotional hurt as someone who is neglected for their whole life or something like that.
Yeah, it does bring up memories, and it does bring up some very painful memories, and
So, kind of with that, we're now here. We're now on the PJ Campbell network.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever godforsaken reason, we decided to help PJ run a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Bad choice. Never do it. but we're doing it nevertheless. And the reason was I got laid off for obvious reasons. And those 15 hours a week I worked don't need to go to school because I'm already going to school. Half the time of me skateboarding class to class is now literally just me sitting at a computer. So I have the time for this right now. I can donate 15 hours a week of my life to this, which that's all I've done. And I've made it clear to you guys, but I want to know from your perspective, what the hell is it like to live in Australia right now and make content for what we can presume is an American audience?
It's interesting. It's actually like difficult because of the time zones. The I don't think people quite understand just how difficult it is to record things when you don't have access to nights during the week. Taylor and I do, which is really lucky. So Taylor and I, when we record things for her channel, for Finally Tailored, that's really lucky that we've got friends here that we are able to record our content with Monday to Friday at night after work, because I work a full-time job. So does Taylor. We both work 9 to 5 jobs. And so it's really difficult when we then go, okay, I don't have access to the nighttime that I don't have access to my nights to record with people in America, because by then it's about 1 a.m. in the morning for Pat, or who's in
3 at that point for me.
Yeah, it's like 3 a.m. in the morning for you guys. Like, so that becomes difficult, which essentially means I've got 2 days to record as much content as I want with you guys in America. Yeah. And that's Saturday and Sunday. But
the ironic part, though, is that's also before you getting exhausted because you work overtime as well.
Yes, and also that's taking away my 2 days, because I have to record during the day. I can't record at night. So that does become a challenge and does become difficult. It cost me a relationship. It cost me friendships, because when I was with Take 3, I did it for a year. I would record solely on weekends. And if you go back and see how much I'm on Take 3, you'll and how much I'm on those videos, and you know that I can only record on 2 days. It takes its toll. It does definitely take its toll on your relationships and on your friendships, because not everyone understands it. Not everyone can appreciate why you're doing this, and you know why, because you enjoy it, and it's an escape and it's fun.
Well, it's what's funny about it too. And maybe funny is the wrong word, but like what's interesting with the whole dynamic is when we did Take 3, and this is a little different, but even this to an extent, I've always been told when you do YouTube, you have to do it. There's no real halfway that you can do. Yeah. You're either doing YouTube or you're not. And you and I talked about this many times. Take 3 was at a breaking point. Like we were close. We were really close to being a fully functioning channel that had content every single day of the week that was both digestible and a lot of fun. But we also realized we couldn't do it. It just didn't make sense.
But that's where it becomes really difficult for me, because like Pat's show, the watch alongs, I can be on the Friday ones. The Friday night watch alongs, I can do those very easily, because that's a Saturday morning for me. Same with Family Game Night. Family Game Night, it's on a Sunday morning for me. It's more difficult for me to get up on a Sunday at 7 a.m. and be able to record, but hey, it is what it is. If you're passionate about it, you'll do it. I won't be able to be on the animated watch-alongs because they're recorded. So they're recorded on Tuesdays for me. I won't be able to be on the PJ Campbell show. I'm on this week's Suddenly Soundtrack simply because I've got this week on leave. Evan, I'm on the show today because I'm on leave. Like it's
well, like I said earlier, I didn't want to get into all this so soon. This was a conversation I knew that had to wait. But you're like, oh, I'm about to be on. My leave is gonna be done soon. I'm like, you son of a bitch! Like, I gotta ruin my plans. But now you guys know too, just kind of why Jacob and I are so close in the community. If you ever see us, fuck around on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, it's this should give you a clearer picture of like, oh, we went through a lot of this together. It wasn't him and I were alone, or Chris was alone, or Matt was alone. A lot of this, we were all in this kind of together,
Yeah, we would all be each other's support. I mean, Evan and I started with at a rocky start, but I ended up getting one of my best friends through all of this. So yeah, I've got, I mean, I met my partner. I met two of my best friends. I met plenty of people who mean the absolute world to me through all of this. And that's why when I say I have a complicated relationship with Take 3 and the Schmodown, it's because without them, I don't have this. I don't have the ability to get on a Skype call and call PJ or Evan at, in the afternoon and say, let's play Fortnite, let's play Mario Kart, let's hang out and just do whatever. I don't have the ability. I don't have my partner who comes home every night and we watch movies together. Like, I don't get that.
So I think with that, we're going to go to our last segment. I don't know if you saw my message to you. I completely forgot to debrief you on this. So you're either going to be put on the spot or you thought about it as the show went on. I'm going to read this verbatim. Oh, shit. I'm an idiot. We have a segment at the end of the show called Famous Last Words, where you explain a scenario of what your famous last words were. Jacob, you got one for us?
I have been thinking about what my famous last words would be. Abby is actually watching this. I'm fairly impressed. My famous last words, I guess, would be, do what makes you happy. I think a lot of people get sucked into doing something because it will make them rich. It will make them famous. I think if you are doing something for free, and if you are taking up your time and energy on something that isn't paying you or is paying you very little, just make sure it makes you happy at least.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it. A job where you work 40 hours a week and you get paid, say, that you get paid not great, but you at least get paid enough to put food on the table. That's different to spending 7 hours a day working on a YouTube channel that pays you $100 a week. And you hate every single second of it. I wouldn't say that that's worth it at all.
Right. No, I get that. So I do want to know, you have totally made me rethink this whole segment. The whole idea was, what was a time and place where you had your famous last words? So my shit for this part of the show was going to be, okay, he might be Australian and getting this done deal might be hard, but he does seem kind of organized, so I guess we should bring him on. Those are what you could say were my famous last words, but you've made me rethink literally everything, and I'm upset about it.
I'm sorry.
So no, dude, it's actually perfect because it makes so much more sense for famous last words to be that. But I like it. I like it. I also do want to acknowledge my friend Nori. Acknowledge me. I'm literally a fan. Fair enough. He likes the background. Shout out to Chris Clark for all the graphics. Him and I literally sat down for probably an hour and a half trying to get all this done. And I do have to say it looks really good. I am very, very, very happy with how this looks and how the show's going. Like I said, I said this earlier, but I've been working on this show all semester, like since the beginning. And you can go back to the episode last week with PJ where I talked about that. But like, it was something I really wanted to do, and I'm really glad we got to tell this story. And I think there's more stories to tell too, over time. So we might have Jacob on one day. We might not. Maybe he doesn't like us anymore and he dies. With that, Jacob, am I wrong? Just don't catch COVID, okay? God, social distance, everyone. But with that, Jacob, I'm gonna have you plug yourself before I give all these dumb announcements.
Guys, you can find me over at the Finally Tailored YouTube channel, where Taylor and I have several shows, including my 10 years on, where we look back at all the films that were released 10 years ago today. And we also have our new show where we do movie brackets. Our next one, which Evan is going to be a part of, and I'm really looking forward to this one, is we're going to do 32 non-MCU Marvel films.
I still have to start my binge.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really
Nightmare?
for that. I love torturing these people, and it's actually a lot of fun.
You literally made me watch fucking Ghost Rider. I don't want to do that.
Otherwise, you can find me at Jacob London on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Wow, very simple. A man who likes to keep it casual. We love to see that. Personally speaking, we're gonna jump into all the announcements. We had a lot happen recently. But tomorrow, Jacob, you're a part of this. We are doing top 10 Disney soundtracks on Chris's Suddenly soundtracks. Very excited for it. I don't know if I'm on. Stay tuned. That's all I gotta say. And also that Chris made a cute little schedule for us. He has a weekly show. It's going to be happening Wednesdays. The 15th, the Suddenly soundtracks, and then the 22nd, he's doing a live watch along of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's a trippy movie, man. Rocky Horror is definitely a trip. And then he's doing the grand return of Suddenly soundtracks with two of his favorite people in the space, with William the Beast Bibiani and Whitney Seibold of the Rocky Horror Picture Show on April 29th. And then he's doing the watch along of the movie that won the top 10 Disney soundtracks with on May 6th. So guys, be sure to check out Suddenly soundtracks. Jacob and I have talked days and days about this. It's probably one of our favorite shows in the space. It's like the way how Chris is able to produce that show is incredible.
I'm just so looking forward to tomorrow and you just crying because Moana's most likely not going to make the list.
We're gonna get into that later. Jacob, just shut up. Shut up. And then we have this Thursday. Things have changed. Don't blame me. John Kaiser is so popular, as PJ like to said, he decided to double book. But we will be having John Kaiser on Big Trouble in Little China this upcoming Thursday. I recommend checking it out. It's a first time viewing for me, so I'm really excited to be there with them. And apparently I might be singing this Friends theme song with Kaiser. I don't know. And also, due to that, on Friday, we're going to be watching National Treasure, which I just rewatched, and I forgot how stupid and dumb and silly and absolutely magical this movie is. Jacob, I think you're going to be on it too.
Oh, yeah. Taylor and I are going to be on this. I'm so looking forward to rewatching this. It's funny. Taylor and I have actually been kind of on a Nick Cage binge watch lately, just because we watched The Rock, we watched the 2 Ghost Rider movies, so now we're going to watch National Treasure. We've got to watch Sorcerer's Apprentice soon because for 10 years on. So, you know, we're on a bit of a Nick Cage binge at the moment.
And then we have, come Monday, DuckTales, the movie. We were scrambling last minute last night to figure out what the hell we were going to watch next week. And I guess the chat was talking about DuckTales. So brilliant. PJ has a brilliant idea of like, oh, we're going to watch DuckTales. I'm like, all right, GG's. I've taken the L on this. So we're going to be watching DuckTales on Monday. I'm actually really excited because I love the rebooted series. It's actually really great animated television that anyone should see. And then last but not least, I'm going to keep plugging this because it's probably been our best content to go up yet. Myself, Robert Butler III, and PJ Campbell, we all went through what our best albums of the decade are, and you can find that on the PJ Campbell Network under the PJ Campbell Show playlist. It's probably my favorite thing that we've done so far. It was just a lot of fun. Dude, RB3 so well spoken. He knows his shit, and to have him on was definitely a blessing in disguise. And our last announcement, we have a duo that's going to be on next week. Jacob, I think you might know him. I don't know. They might be to the party. Something late.
Yeah. I kind of have a feeling they might be on my bracket show soon.
No, so stay tuned. They're pretty good people. And that's all I kind of got to say. Again, I want to thank you so much, Jacob, for being on. You guys can find me on Twitter, not at EvanderGraph15. Chris Clark, change that graphic, please. But at EvanderGraph Live on Twitter. I'm going through all the Pixar movies right now because I've said this many times, they're my favorite franchise, and I needed a new 19-year-old Evan opinion on them. So far, I've stayed impressed even through Cars 2. So I'm gonna have an updated list coming out probably in 2 days at that. So I'm very excited to drop that. So stay tuned on Twitter to figure out all my other shit that's happening. Again, Jacob, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace.